Hello everyone and welcome to Oxygen Not Included. In today's video we'll take a look at all the interface, meaning like all the buttons, what they do, but also we'll take a look at how to start a game, and what option you should consider. So yeah, before seeing like all the interface, we'll start a game and we'll check all the menus and what to pick, what what the planet that you want, the duplicates, so you have the ideal experience. There's a lot of content that will be in this video, so I'll try my best to cover everything, but by staying concise and relevant. So first off, when you start a new game, you're prompted to choose whether you want the survival mode or the no sweat. There are things between those two are not very big. So the game mode is a way to reduce the angerness, the disease spread, the morale, and the stress of your duplicates. If you want, you can make the game even more easy. If you take, for example, the more sweat, you will find all the things that's happening in the game sitting down there. So when you choose the no sweat, you will just lower. So by default, everything is like this. If you go with the no sweat, no, more like this, in fact. When you go with the no sweat, it goes all one down. So if you want, you can even go even easier for your experience by keeping pressing left. Or if you want, you can make the game even more difficult if you press right instead. So the disease, the morale, the stress, the hungerness, and if you are in the DLC, you also have the fifth options, which is radiation. All of that will affect your duplicates and make the game considerably more difficult. There are also like some checkbox on there, so it's pretty straightforward. So the stress reaction, you can read the tooltip. So basically, when the dupe is 100% stress, do you want him to have some reactions? You can check that off. On the DLC, you can also turn on the teleporter or turn it off. And you also have the sandbox, so that's what I used on my first video, the part 1. So what to take when you are back to the over here? What do you want? The no sweat, the survival? It doesn't really matter, honestly. If you are if it's like the first time that you play the game, or like in the first, you probably should go with something like no sweat. So like, you can't, it's the same game, it just make the things like the hungriness and the disease a bit less annoying, so it will let you the time to learn a little bit on what you can do in this kind of situation. If you want to, the more experience you go, you can just turn the difficulty a little bit more difficult, but for the most part, survival is good, right? The default, just the default difficulty, that's good. If you are in the Spaced Out DLC, upon like choosing your game mode, you'll then be prompted with a new menu asking you if you want the classic or the Spaced Out scenario. The difference is the size of the starting planet and the amount of planets that you can travel. So in the classic version, you start in a big asteroid, and everything that you will ever need can be mostly found inside that starting planet, just like the original version, basically. But in the Spaced Out version, the starting planet is quite small, and you are forced to travel to the other planets in order to get all the resources that you need. For example, if you click the classic, you'll find that we're starting over here, the Terra. The nearby asteroid will be the radioactive swamp, and you have like a couple other asteroids, right? And if you go like in the most difficult version, yeah, so basically you'll have pretty much the same amount of asteroids, right? So the same amount of planet that you can travel, pretty much. But if you go with the Space Out, still Terra, but this time you'll notice that you have more nearby asteroids, and also a little few more asteroids, like maybe one or two, I'm not so sure. But if you go for the last one, the radioactive one, you will notice that you have a lot more asteroids nearby. It will force you to, travel at the beginning to get all the asteroids that you need. Some will get the metal that you need, some will have the oil that you need. Not everything will be in the same planet, unlike the classic scenario. So what to pick between two? Personally, I prefer to go with the Space Out version because we are playing the Space Out DLC, so we might as well just play the full experience of it, and not just a sort of a mixture between the original version and the DLC. So coming back to the original game, once you selected the game mode, you are now prompt to choose the desert or a world that you want. You will understand that this is a gradient. The planets on the left side are much easier than the planet on the right side. You can see like chance of survival chance there going lower and lower as I go right. So basically the easiest planet is Terra, the one all the way to the left, and the most difficult one is the Oasis, the one on the right. If you're new to the game, I highly suggest to go with Terra. Terra is a very good planet because it has the most of the biomes that you want, and it's the easiest one to just learn the game. So don't be afraid, go with this one. If you try this planet a couple of times, you want to maybe to do something else, you know, so have something a bit tricky, you can go maybe with this one. The Oceania. This Oceania is pretty much the same as Terra, but like you'll notice we have some world threats, and well, you can travel to get different experiences. You can read ones. One of them are good. Some of them are good. Some of them are bad. You will notice that the color is pretty much what means. So some like the red stuff is usually bad. The gray stuff not so good, but like when it's full of color, it's usually good. Like for example, Metal Rich, Magma Channel, red. Well, it's all right. Alternative pod location, it's all right. Not kind of bad, but it's not too bad. Once you choose the planet, you're now prompted to choose your 3 starting duplicates. And oh boy, that a lot of people struggle with this at first. So I'll try to bring this down and try to make it very easy to understand. So this is the last menu before the game. It is a bit different from what you get from the game when in the printer pod, because you can re-roll infinitely, right? And so because of this, a lot of people will take a lot of time just to take the 3 most perfect duplicates that you can ever have. But that begs the question, like, what is the best duplicate that you should pick? Well, first off, I suggest to give names to the duplicates. So instead of like giving the default names, I think it's more fun to give personal names to the duplicates. You can go ahead and call their Gnet. Like this, you will be able to give personally to them, and they will probably seem less like brainless drones doing the biting. Also, you can give a name to the colonies or down there. So you can shuffle, I mean, or you can just give a fun name, the Blissful House, about that. Okay, so the first thing that you see kind of when you have a duplicate is the interest. I feel like a lot of people give too much attention to that. It doesn't matter that much in the long run. It is important in some way, you should pick that seriously, but it doesn't matter in the short mid-term, because this game is a RPG kind of, so every time that you have duplicate doing a job, it gets better at it. So after 50, 100, 200 cycles, it will totally be a champion at it. So it doesn't really matter if it has like 5 points, 9 points of missing at start, or 0. Yeah, at some point it will just get as good as any duplicate. The only thing is with the interest is like it gives a good kickstart when the duplicate is there the first time. You will know like it will be able to do a better job than the others at certain tasks, right? So for example, Gnet there will be able to do the mission better than anyone else. The threats are more important in my sense, and you should take more attention to it. I will not cover every single of them because, well, there's a lot of them, but also because they are quite all similar one to another. For example, you have over here someone that cannot do the researching errands, while you have also like the decreased agriculture, you have decreased creativity. So it's all kind of similar, right? Just take the time to read about them and to experiment, to learn about what you like and what you don't like. However, there are a couple of bad traits that you should probably be cognitive of when you're choosing a duplicate. I will enumerate some of them. Okay, so the 2 first ones I think that are a bit annoying is the loud sleeper, sorry, and the nyctophobic. It forces you to design bedrooms in a very specific way, so for them to meet like their differences. So basically, when you have a loud sleeper, I keep saying that, it will disturb and interrupt the sleep of others around them. So what you want to do in this situation is just to push the bed a little further, and so like you'll have to take that into consideration. So it's basically like one bed and less in your barracks. So can be a bit annoying for sure. So certainly at the especially at the beginning of the game, but it's doable. You just push the bed a little further. As for the next public, the one that needs light to sleep, it's also like kind of the same deal right again. The thing is you have to put a bed and have a light switch on always for him. And you also want to make sure, like, the thing is, like, the light will disturb and interrupt the sleep of others. So you want to make sure, like, the light only hit the one that needs light for sleeping and not the other ones that doesn't need it. The bottomless stomach and mouth breather are okay, but just remember that when you have a duplicant like this, it's worth of 2. So a bottomless stomach is for 2, while a mouth breather breath for 2. So yeah. It's like having 2 duplicants that will just breathe oxygen if you have a mouth breather, rather than just one. So you have to be a bit cognitive of this for sure. The flatulent and allergic are for me pretty much the most annoying bad threats that I usually skip for sure. If I see them, I skip. The flatulent generates natural gas every so in a while. The natural gas, the thing is with it is like it can infect your plants, but also like the other duplicants. And it starts slow, but at some point the base will be full of natural gas, and so like it will never go away. So you'll have to address this. The thing that I hate about the flatulent is like a problem in the long term that you'll have to address for sure. As for the allergic dupes, it's kind of the same situation. The problem arises from the fact that some plants in your base will produce feral scent, which is very good for the stress relief of all the dupes except for this guy, the guy with the allergic. This guy doesn't like having the stress relief. So for this duplicant, you'll have to, it's either like you just don't make any fluorescent scent, which my sense is not so much of a good idea, or you can just make pills that will alleviate the allergy for this dupe, which is another way like to be a bit annoying for sure, because making the pills will force one dupe to always make them, but also like yeah, so in the long term it's not so viable as so those 2 I'll skip. Another one that you should probably skip too is the narcoleptic. This one is a dupe that will sleep every so in a while, and it will affect a lot of his productivity. So the worst thing about it is that it tends to happen at the worst time. The dupe will drop whatever he has in his hands and will start something anew once it will wake up, and leaving like the task completely undone. So basically, if he was like a rancher, if he is a rancher and has this threat, let's say like he wants to take care of an animal, a critter, and in the middle of it, it will fall and sleep. It will kind of bug up the critter will not know what to do. The dupe will sleep, it will wake up, and then it will do something new, and it's quite annoying for sure. It should probably be avoided if you can. I see a lot of people that don't like anemic. Anemic is alright. So the anemic forces the duplicants to be a bit slower, so they run quite slower than compared to the other ones. It's something that's a bit annoying for the first cycles for sure, but give him some time, he will be able to be just as fast as any other dupes as the level will rise up. Every time that you have a dupe that runs around in the base, it will get better at the athletic threat, so it's not so big of a deal for sure. In the long run, it doesn't affect so much the game. In the DLC, we have 3 more threats, which one is worth the intention. It's called the glow stick. I'm not so sure if it's, honestly, the game says it's a good threat, but I'm not so sure if it's a good one or a bad one. Because the dupe literally emits light and radiation, which affect the other dupes. Not only that, but also it affects himself. It can be sick because of its own radiation, But the worst thing about it is that it will emit light while sleeping, which means it will also disturb the sleep of others next to him. So just like the loud sleeper and the nyctophobic, you kind of want to push his bed away from the others. Fun fact though, this dude sleeps very well with the nyctophobic because he needs light to sleep, right? But the other ones emit light, so it's like a perfect match. For the stress reaction in the overjoyed responses down there, it's kind of whatever. All the overjoyed responses are good in some way. So we have over here we have the sticker bomber, we have the balloon artist, we have another sticker bomber. It's quite good. It's quite good. It's not so much of a big deal. As for the stress reaction, they are all kind of bad. Some are more worse than the others. But the thing is, like, if everything works as it should, you should never have any stress reaction at all. If you see like some dupes getting more stressed, just handle this situation, you should be alright. Finally, what duplicate should you pick to start the adventure, right? Because the beginning there is so much to do. I will suggest to have at least a digger, so you can go over here, you can choose the job. That's only for the starting duplicates, by the way. So you can have over here a digger, you can have over here. Another one that I'll suggest is maybe a researchers. The reasons why is because at the beginning of the game, as I said, there's a lot to dig. There's also a lot of research to do, and it helps to ease those tasks just a little by having those dupes skill on those fields, right? For the third one, honestly, it's mostly free. You can pick whatever you want. You can have a builder, because you have a lot to build. You can have a cooker, because you have a lot to cook at the beginning, right? You can have a farmer, rancher, you can even have another digger if you want to. But keep in mind like that the interests are important, but you should not base your choice only on that. I started my adventures on my playthrough of the Oasis with 2 diggers, one dude that has a lot of analytics, because it was I needed when I started the adventure. What matters the most is the combination of the interests and the good traits and the bad traits, right? This doesn't say a lot because it's quite everything. But if you have a dupe with 9 points in construction, 3 points in science, and have a trait that increases the analytic, to me, it's a good pick for the start, right? Even though he has the bottomless stomach traits. My advice on this will be like, don't take hours just to choose a dupe. Just have fun to pick the ones that you like, and don't worry so much about the skills. It doesn't matter that much in the long run. So for example, a nice starting teams could be just like that, right? So you have one with 9 points in the excavations, and it has like a plant mortar, but it doesn't matter because I will never let her do any biting in the farmer, right? She'll never be a farmer. Then we'll go with Carl, 9 on science. It has some skills on his cruising, so that can be good for me. You will be a little faster than the others, right? And I'll just never make him be a ranger, so it's a good pick. For the last one, Suzanne, I will give him like construction and increased germ resistance, so that's always good because it's good in the long term, right? So she will be more resistant to the germs, and she is kind of bad with the machinery, but it's all right because I will never give her this task, and that's it. Okay, now in the game, you will see that the interface is divided by 4. And all spread in the 4 corners. I'll just turn off the sandbox. So the options on the top left are the most straightforward. It indicates the current cycle, but also like the game speed, but also like some sort of notices all the way up there and over here. Few tips that you should know. First off, if you want to pause the game, just press the space bar. If you want to alternate speed, you just press the tab button. Tab button. So it alternates. 1, 2, 3. It's a very important shortcuts there. Sometimes pay attention to the stress over here, but also like to the germs. Well, the germs are not so bad, but also like mostly like the calories, right? It will tells you all the calories that are available in the base. So that doesn't mean like it's all the calories in the world. It means that all the calories that your duplicates can get. So if I were to have a lot of calorie over here in this pound of water for some reasons, that will not count inside of the calorie over here because there's just no way for my duplicates to get over there, right? So basically make sure the numbers are always good, right? Also, cool tip: if you are in a hurry, you just want to take a look and like, let's say I'm over here, I'm looking for a duplicate, and I don't know where he is in the base. I can just click on the stress; it will just immediately center the camera to him. So that's a very good tip for sure. The options on the right can be complicated and deserve a video on its own, but basically it allows you to manage the colony in the grand scheme. I would like to bring the attention to the priorities panels over here, as there a little secret button over here that I'm sure most of you don't know that it exists. So if you go over here in the options, you have the little mark over here that tells you enable proximity. This option is very interesting because it allows you, if you enable this, it means that the duplicant will always take the closest, most urgent errand to perform. But doing so, it helps a little to cut down the travel time, and thus is useful for in the large colonies. In short, do it when you see your base is getting big, right? So right now there's nothing in the base, so it's not so useful to do it now, but eventually I will do it. So it's important to know that this exists. All the overlays below over here allow you to see specific things at the base. For example, over here we have the oxygen overlay. You can see over here we have a lot of carbon dioxide, a lot of oxygen there. So we can see that they are struggling to sleep a little there because it's not so good. I could just maybe do a hole there, because the carbon dioxide tends to sink down the base while the oxygen tends to go up, so they rise up. Also, you can have like a view on the electric grid and the power overlay, the temperature, all useful tools. I take the time to learn about them, but know that you can open all the overlays with the F key. So F1 is for the overlay, the first overlay, F2 is for the second one, and so on and so forth, right? At the bottom left contains all the buildings right here. So just like the overlays, when it's not the F keys, but like it's 1, 2, 3. So when you press 1, it's the... Yeah, I was pressing the wrong button. Well, when you press 1, it's the base. When you press oxygen, is the other one. When you press the power, 3 is the power, and so on and so forth, right? Another important thing about the buildings, and you will notice eventually, is the material with which you want to build a structure with. So for example, over here, you will notice that right now I have only one, as because I pretty much did nothing in the base. But if I open up the sandbox, you'll notice that I have a lot of things that I can build my building with. All the materials have different effects. You should probably read about them if you want to build something. So for example, over here we have sandstone, decor plus 10, we have the engineer's rock, temperature plus 15 Celsius, right? But for the most part, you have to just remember like the materials helps some of the building to withstand the heat. So if one of the classic is when you want to build, for example, something with the electronics. So for example, a material generator over here, and you have for the gold amalgam, it has the overheat temperatures plus 50, and also the decor value plus 10%. So most of the time the materials will benefit a little on the decor value, but also like the overheat temperature will help a little. So if you are to build some structures in a hot area and it just keep overheating, just consider maybe to build it with better materials so it can withstand the heat. There's also like the thermal conductivity. That's maybe another topic for another video. That can be also important because that's a bit more tricky to get the numbers right. But for the most part, you want to build stuff with the materials that you have the most in your base, or stuff with the closest materials, with the materials nearby, so it doesn't take forever for your tubes to bring them to the site. Another shortcut that can be very handy is whether you select something like, say, the tile. You have over here the copy that will like appear out of nowhere, and the shortcut to use that is B. So for example, if I want to build like another bed, instead of just going in the menu, which is like somewhere over here, code, yeah. If I don't necessarily know how to do that, I can just click on the code, and that will prompt the little button there, and then you can press B. So like this, you can like duplicate stuff very fast, right? So that's very handy, like really. Finally, the bottom right corner contains all the tools that should give you that give your duplicants errands. The shortcuts are quite important for sure. We have the G is for the dig. This one is probably the one that you get very fast, but also like the cancel is C, the construct is X. Priority is P. So pretty straightforward, but also go ahead and say like some of them are also quite useful. So K is for cleaning the debris. M for mopping. You also have the attack critters, T, and N for the capture critters. So these four are quite useful sometimes. For the harvest plants, so basically this one is not so important. Most of the time, like when you put down farms like this, it's already automatically on. But sometimes you can harvest the wild plants. So if you want to do that, you may as well just enable that. If you want to disable it, just disable it. That's the way. This one, just to disinfect buildings, you can do that. The duplicant will do it. It's not so useful. And to extract pipes. So right now I have no pipes. It's not only pipes, it's also like the solids that is inside the deconveyors. So pretty much, if you have a loop and you want to destroy like the pipe, you may as well just empty the pipe in that loop before destroying the pipe, well, the structures itself, because it will certainly make a mess. So if you have a pipe, you have liquids running through it. If you destroy this pipe, the liquid inside of it will just fall in your base, and that can make a mess. So you probably want to to empty the pipe first before destroying the pipes. A very useful tip that I will give is like when you have the disk construct here, I always advise to click here and select the buildings over here. Every time. I say every time because every time that you load up the game, you'll have to re-enable this. So it's quite a bit annoying, but you really want that to be active. This allows to destroy walls and floors without destroying the pipes or the wires that are behind it, which is like all by default. So if I have, for example, if I want to destroy this over here, this wall, because I want to reshape the base, I don't necessarily want to destroy the pipes and the wires that will just screw up a little my base. I don't want to do that. So most of the time you just have to building selected, you want to destroy this, and the wires behind it will stay intact. I don't really want it to do that. It was just for the because right now we can see the oxygen diffuser is not working, just for the sake of showing. But like, yeah, you'll notice the wires there are kept safe. If you want to destroy wires, what you want to do is just to open up the power overlay, and with this, if you trigger like the deconstruct, you will notice like by default it will always select the one that you like. If I have the power, it will be the power wires. If I have the pipes, it will be the liquid pipes, and so on and so forth, right? So most of the time that's how you want to do it. If you want to destroy stuff, just do it by layers instead of just all, because like this you will avoid a lot of misses. I can't tell you how many times in the past I created a lot of misses because of this. So yeah, just take it one layer by layer with the overlays instead, and just make sure like this is always building. Good tip for sure. More secrets can be found inside the options menu. If you take a look at first, well, the graphic can be nice because you can have a color mode for people that are colorblind. But more inside the game here we can see that we can enable the sandbox at any time. But you notice though that when it says active, you cannot disable it. So I don't know if it was obvious enough, but like when you enable the sandbox, obviously you're kind of cheating. So if you have the sandbox open, you cannot have all the achievements and, you know, the progress of the game, which is kind of linked with the achievements, is not existent. So yeah, if you're playing sandbox, you need to know this. This is kind of cheating because obviously all the buildings can be built immediately with whatever resources that, whether you have it or not, you can just, yeah. So it's obviously cheating, but sometimes it can be good to use that. So if you want to test out like a system, or yeah, you want to test out, maybe like you want to cool down your base, right, and you don't know how to do it, and you have a vague idea, and you don't necessarily want to, you know, spend a lot of time to do like failures. Maybe you just want to enable the sandbox, be able to to build that building, to build like a system and see how it works, and then you can like iterate this and like implement this in your true story. So like you can just make like a lab level, a lab world where you can just test out different systems and stuff. So you better know then after that in your main world, right? But also like you can change the temperature unit. So if you're more comfortable with Fahrenheit, you can change it over here instead. I prefer doing that at Celsius. And also this over here, very cool. So right now it auto save every cycles. But if you want, you can make it so it saves every 2 cycles or 5 cycles or 10, 50, 20, 50, and never. That's pretty MV, honestly, because at one point in the game, and you are like, let's say ahead, you are at the cycle 300s. At this point, like you don't necessarily need to save every cycle. You can go maybe for 2 cycles or 5 cycles like this, because most of the time during this time in the game, not a lot is happening inside a single cycle, and it takes a long time to save. Oh my goodness, it takes very long, and so it can be a bit annoying, a bit frustrating. So like I encourage maybe to change that as you go in the game. All right, so that's it. Hope you enjoy, and as always, take care. See you there. Ciao.